You know, talking about the universality of Asian content that's competitive in the market is the perfect segue into our fireside chat. Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings is undoubtedly this year's biggest film. We're honored to have the film's director, also the recipient of our 2021 Entertainment Game Changer Award, here with us. To introduce him and drive this fireside chat, I'm pleased to invite back to the stage Janet Yang.
And I'm so pleased to bring to the stage the amazing Destin Daniel Cretton, the man of the year. Please. Are you all mic'd up? Okay, yeah. Which is your better side?
I have no better side. Hi, everyone.
Destin. I have admired your film since Short Term 12, which is an amazingly moving movie about a group of teenagers who work in a facility. Then there was Glass Castle, based on the book that was also phenomenal, about a woman growing up in a poor family with an alcoholic parent. And then Just Mercy, which came out a couple of years ago, about Bryan Stevenson and his efforts to in prison reform and getting people off death row when they're unjustifiably accused. Anyways, these were incredible movies that stayed with me. And then I heard you were making Shang-Chi. So that's a bit of a leap, but what I've seen in all these movies is just incredible compassion and a strong humanistic streak. And you have made that leap very, very successfully and brought that to Shang-Chi. But tell me what it was like, because as I understand, you basically said to the Marvel executives, I never wanted to make a Marvel movie. And that was supposed to get your name scratched off the list, and lo and behold, you got the call that you had the job.
Yes, it was actually about a week before Marvel made an announcement that they're looking for directors for Shang-Chi. I had called my agent, and I don't really know why I said this, but I specifically chose Marvel as the target, and I told him, just don't steer me in that direction. I don't ever want to do a Marvel movie. And it was because I didn't feel ready to do a giant movie, and I wanted to keep kind of taking smaller steps. And then I saw the announcement that they're looking for directors for Shang-Chi, and I was not prepared for my personal reaction to that announcement. I felt like I had to be involved in some way, and so I called my agent back and I said, I know I told you this last week, but I changed my mind. Can you get me a meeting? And I started off this meeting really thinking that I was just wanting to be a part of the conversation, to express my hopes and fears for this character and this world. And it really was me speaking to my 11-year-old self, who did not have somebody who looked like me to look up to and to imagine flying around with and doing superhero things with and dressing up like on Halloween. And it was just a fun meeting, really, that turned into 2, turned into 3, and then eventually I was pitching to them, and then I booked the job.
Oh, I thought you told the Marvel executives that you said you never wanted to make that movie.
At the end of my pitch to them, I went and pitched them really a story that's very close to the movie, and it was a pitch that was very personal and very honest, and I told myself that I would just be really open in this pitch, and I wouldn't try to sell anything to Marvel. I would just pitch exactly the movie that I would want to tell. And at the end of that pitch, which was a very vulnerable pitch, and it felt really nice to do it. It didn't feel like a show. But at the end of it, when you get to chit-chat time, one of the heads of Marvel, Lou, asked me, so have you always wanted to do a big movie like this? And I thought, is now the time to be dishonest? But I decided, well, I'm on an honest streak already, so I told him actually about 2 weeks ago, I told my agent I never want to do a Marvel movie. And the laughter wasn't as big as I had hoped. It was actually a bit awkward. And it was one of those statements that I repeated 1,000 times as I was going down the elevator, going, why did you say that? Why did you say that? I didn't hear back from them for a few weeks, and I thought I didn't get it. And I just was moving forward with my life, and then I ended up, getting the call to come back in, and they told me I got the job. And Lou came up to me and he said, the moment you told me you'd never wanted to do a Marvel movie was the moment I knew you had to do this movie.
Well, you did such a really spectacular job. I saw the piece you did for Vanity Fair, which had a pretty long description of how you shot the bus scene, and that alone. But how do you learn to do all that fighting and the special effects when you've just never done it before?
That's a good question. I mean, every movie that I've started, in the beginning, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. And it is why I'm so repeatedly addicted to this medium, because every time I start, it feels like a brand new job. And this, for me, the only hope is that you get into the trenches with a group of people who support you, who aren't offended when you say, I've never done that before. I have no idea what you're talking about right now. And I feel really lucky to have gotten into a project of this scale and this size and be surrounded by people who are secure in themselves enough to not be afraid of a director saying, I have no idea, which I said quite a bit. But I also found that storytelling is storytelling, and the same narrative muscles that you use to string together a dialogue scene is really similar to doing a fight sequence. And my favorite fight sequences are I mean, Jackie Chan was like my childhood hero, and I didn't really understand why I was so in love with his choreography, but now that I was able to look at it and analyze it, it's full of storytelling. It's full of narrative setups and payoffs and character reveals, and those were the things that I was able to find that I really loved, that part of the storytelling process, and working with choreographers to make sure that every fight sequence and every action sequence was telling the right story for our characters.
The other thing that made me just laugh and cry was reading an interview where you talked about all your film professors said, Destin, you don't have the personality to work in Hollywood. You're not aggressive enough. You're too laid back. Being born in Hawaii, and everyone I know who's born in Hawaii has a feeling of a tropical breeze just sort of blowing through your system. You're like, you're not going to be pushed. So perhaps that's what they sensed in you, yet you prevailed.
I wish that's how my professors described it.
But you prevailed. And I think it might be interesting for aspiring filmmakers to hear how you did that, what kept you going, and how you kept the faith in yourself and just knew this was something you had to do.
You mentioned that Vanity Fair interview. I had made the mistake of reading some of the comments under that interview, and there were quite a few talking about the pace that I speak at, and that if you played the interview at 1.5, then I start talking
Be a
like
normal
person.
speed.
But it is something that I have, over time, much like Shang-Chi. The journey of Shang-Chi, I think, is a young man who is learning to redefine what he considers are his weaknesses, to redefine the pain in his life and see it as not just something that he can persevere or get through, but the source of his superpower. I have always seen my slow pace or my shyness, my social awkwardness, my inability to network. I've always seen those things as negatives, and I've always been told that those are things you have to get over. And I never did, and I couldn't. But what I have found is that regardless of what your core personality is, and all of the things that have happened to you to create that personality, if you are sincere, I'm talking to myself right now. If you are sincere and honest about that personality and own it, you're untouchable. It is your superpower, because and you start to find that you become a magnet to people that you just naturally get along with. Like and talent comes in many personality forms. It's not just outgoing, perfect speakers who are talented. There's a lot of awkward people who go and stand in the back corner at a party because they don't want to talk to anybody, and that's where I am, and then we end up talking to each other. But I have found that at least, and I'm sure you can apply this to really any profession, that when I am open and honest about who I am, there's, everything just becomes easy, and people can decide right off the bat, do I want to get into business with this person? And luckily in the case of Marvel, I decided to be that, and they were like, I found, they have a sense of humor. They actually don't mind somebody who sweats and stutters and doesn't look at them during my pitch because I'm just looking at my computer screen. As long as the ideas get across, they were happy, and I found that it actually was a very I had a really great time with them. The working relationship couldn't have been better.
That's a lot to take in. It's beautiful, actually. I have one final question. It's a tough one. What makes Fukushima hot dogs so good?
Ooh.
Apparently, this is one of your favorite foods from your hometown in Maui. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You're speaking to my soul.
That's what I thought. I was trying to get there, and I knew just how.
If any of you go to Haiku, Maui, there's a little store called Fukushima Store. It's where I was a stock boy there, and my older brother worked there, my two sisters worked there. They claim to have the best hot dogs on Maui. I have traveled quite a bit, and they are the only hot dogs that I like. So I would say they're the best hot dogs in the world. I really don't like hot dogs, but I will eat so many of them. And they have a secret sauce, which is, it's primarily mayonnaise, but I don't know what else is. It's mayo that is like not the color of mayo, but it's mainly mayo. But it was Mrs. Fukushima who was in her 90s before she passed away, but she was the only one who would make it every morning, and it would just be in these plastic tubs, the same like 4 plastic tubs with saran wrap over the top in the fridge. And part of your job my job when I got there was to go and get the secret sauce and take it out there. And if you get a hot dog with everything, it's great.
All right, we're off to Maui right after this little talk. Well, we're also, I suspect that you'll be invited to many more parties and bigger parties, and so I'm going to be that person sitting in the corner that gets to talk to you some more. Thank you so much for the brief time that you've spent with us.
Thank you.
We love you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.